Anything that has popped up in the world of Clay recently that you are very excited about?
The types of functions we were building for clients that Claude Code can now replace. We've just found that Claude Code can do a lot.
Using Claude, what tasks do you have it doing, and how has it sort of changed the way you guys work?
One of my team members on a call like 2 weeks ago, he gave it Typeform's website. I'm sure everybody's used Typeform, rebuild this entire software. And it just did it like perfectly within like 4 hours. Like he sent it to us afterwards, and it was literally the whole function of Typeform just completely recreated.
What exists now for people who want to start software companies?
I don't know, man. As someone who has a SaaS business, I really don't like the fact that Claude Code can take Typeform.com and remake it in 4 hours. All of us building SaaS are going to have to think about SaaS in a different way if it can just get created in an instant.
You see all this hype on LinkedIn about different tools and different process and different things. Like as an agency, you literally have to figure out whether it adds value or not. And if it doesn't, you need to get rid of it.
Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is the founder of The Kiln, a Clay agency that helps go-to-market teams scale. The Kiln was recently acquired by 2X, and we are excited to dive into all of that. Today's guest is Patrick Spachowski. Patrick, welcome back to the show, my friend.
Appreciate you guys having me again. Nice to chat.
Hey, you always bring the heat, bring the guests. We love having you on. And Adam, what are 3 things that people will learn if they stick around until the end today?
The 3 things you're going to get if you stick around until the end of this episode are, number 1, we're going to look under the hood of the exact automated engine Patrick uses to turn raw signals into 100 million plus a pipeline. Number 2, we're going to learn how to build an outbound moat using technical triggers and deep research that your competitors are too lazy to engineer. And number 3, last but not least, and the most important, Patrick breaks down the blueprint for building a high leverage agency that was designed to be acquired from day one. And ladies and gentlemen, got acquired for, I think it's safe to say, life-changing money. That was an approved statement.
I think was it approved? I don't know. Maybe I did approve it. Yeah, I don't know. Sure.
Well, that's all great. We're gonna do those in a different. We're gonna get right into the acquisition first. Before we do that, Patrick, can you please tell us what the Kiln is?
Totally. So, I mean, if people know what Clay is, it's easy to describe the Kiln, or essentially an agency that implements Clay. But if you don't know what Clay is, we're pretty much an agency that uses some of the new age AI tools that exist out there to automate certain sales processes for enterprise companies. And so we just get these like really menial, tedious, manual sales processes that a lot of large enterprise companies take part in. And we automate them so the people on that team can do things that are more valuable and high leverage and can only be done by humans, like writing Adam Robinson LinkedIn posts, which cannot be replicated, of course.
Yeah, that thing is really. I want to go back to that at some point, but like, I just imagine Adam starting to put out these like very Jack Kerouac style, like stream of consciousness, like almost like jazzy LinkedIn posts, and it's like how to not be AI. Someone in the chat even said like, you can have Claude write in your own style. What am I missing? But like then it writes the AI version of your style, and I think even that we can pick out. Maybe it gets better. Who the heck knows?
Yeah,
we're gonna talk all about AI coming up, Claude Code, all of that. But Patrick, let's talk about this acquisition. So, so you were acquired by 2X. Congratulations. That is freaking awesome. So I first want to ask, let's talk about sort of this idea of being acquired. Like, how did the mission to be acquired, one, when did that get incepted into your mind? Was that the goal? That seems like that was a goal from very early on. And then how do you approach building this thing, knowing that that is an outcome you want, not just a great cash flowing business, which of course you did achieve?
Yeah, so I'd say when we initially started the business, we really had no, like, it wasn't like our plan was to start this agency and get acquired. Like my co-founder, Matthias, and I didn't even really plan to hire employees. Like the initial thing was like, we can do this Clay implementation thing and like not have jobs. And we could just like do this and make enough money to not have a job. And then, you know, like that'll be great. But then very quickly, the Clay space started growing a lot and we started getting a lot of inbound demand. And we were like, well, you know, if we have all of this super interested in, man, we should just keep growing. We started hiring and hiring and hiring. And suddenly we had like a whole team and we had like management layers and like process. And we were like, what, and suddenly it was completely unrecognizable from what we initially intended it to be. And we're not mad at that, of course. Like, it was super fun journey to build. And but then eventually, as the team started kind of becoming like a more material thing, we were like, oh well, like, where does this go as an agency, right? Because like I think it really depends on like your business structure. Obviously, SaaS companies have their own kind of exit goal. It's either like IPO or maybe you get acquired, but at like a crazy multiple by some other SaaS company. But for most agencies, they're all almost bootstrapped, at least a lot of the like they're like agencies of our size. And then they generally have a much lower multiple when they get acquired, but like usually the exit potential is, or the two exit options are really like get acquired or just keep running until you're bored of it and then shut it down. Like those are your two options pretty much. And so eventually Matthias and I were just like, we're pretty much in this current state where us getting acquired has a lot of upside potential for the business that acquires us and potentially for the business as a whole. And they say you should never get acquired exactly when you want to, because when you want to get acquired is when you've kind of like plateaued out on revenue and you're not making like, any more gains. And of course, no business wants to acquire a plateauing company. And so for us, it was like, we're at this hyper growth stage. We feel that some real like infrastructure by an enterprise company like 2X would help us scale and achieve the goals we want to with the business. And it just felt like a good decision. And of course, the team was awesome, and it felt like a really good match, really good like kind of core better together mission. So all those things kind of came together, leading to this point. But all that to say, yeah, the goal was maybe the goal started being get acquired when we realized like this is probably a prime time to get acquired, because like once we get acquired, we still have a ton of this crazy upside potential and can benefit whoever acquires us.
Yeah. And you do have I see JT from 2X in here. What's up, JT? You got a good acquisition on your hands. So congratulations to the other side of that transaction too. Congrats to the 2X team. So a lot of, well, number one, I just want to validate something you said, like transactions. I don't even want to say acquisitions, but like transactions, whether you're trading or whatever, are very difficult in general, right? You do the best you can with the information you have at the time. And usually we were talking about some sort of psychological heuristics a couple of weeks ago, and like, different fallacies that we fall into. And I think when things start ripping, I don't even want to say greedy, but it's like, we get worried that it's going to scale, it's going to keep rocketing up, and then we're going to miss out on potential gains if we don't sell now. And to your point, Patrick, like there's never going to be a point where that it's plateauing, but your acquirer does not see that. Like that doesn't exist. Like people who buy businesses are very smart. And at the end of the day, you have to, kind of do what you did the best you could with the information at the time. And you're like, this, we're ripping, this is perfect. Now from there, you're also looking at this like, okay, how can 2X kind of ramp us up? So I'm just curious quickly, like how joining a larger org, maybe, I don't know if it changed your view on go-to-market systems. Did it change your like vision on what you could do and sort of the ceiling that you had? I'm just curious about all that.
Yeah. So we were obviously like a very early agency in the world of go-to-market engineering, and I've always wanted us to be the pioneers of that space. What honestly excites me the most, of course, revenue excites me as well, but what really excites me past revenue is doing like cutting edge work and things that I'm excited about day to day, and then our team doing cutting edge work, just having like a group of people that are cracked and doing really exciting things that nobody else has done. And I felt like we had, as an agency prior to getting acquired, scaled up quite a bit and started working with some really interesting enterprise companies, especially in the tech space. But as we started growing, my goal was like, I want us to make go-to-market engineering clearly worth it for every company that's looking to bring it on. Like it hadn't really been validated. It's still, you could say it's actively still not completely validated across the market. I would say it is at this point, but the goal was to validate go-to-market engineering as much as we possibly could. And I think the way to do that is get the biggest companies you can, the most archaic enterprise companies you can, implement go-to-market engineering, and they would get benefit from it. And so 2X is a great fit for this. And the reason we thought it was a great like kind of growth play was they are working with all of these companies we want to work with, like all these massive enterprise businesses that have archaic systems, have been using the same like CRM instance since 2005, and everything's just slow moving and terrible. Like those are the companies we want to work with because there's just so much value add with tools like Clay. Obviously, there's value add for startups too, but not nearly as much. Like most startups are pretty fast moving, have a pretty good grasp on what sort of tech to use. There's some businesses that have signed enterprise contracts, like, again, like 15 years ago for a piece of tech and haven't changed it. Like those are the ones we want to go into. And I think if we can do that and present those case studies to the public, it's pretty clear that go-to-market engineering is like essentially validated. And that, to me, was really exciting. And I think that's something most of the team can get around. It's fun working with these massive, well-known companies and just doing great work for them. So that was kind of the thought, is like they have this huge enterprise client base. We should just go do all of our go-to-market engineering work for them. And then they also can handle a lot of the administrative work that we as founders didn't like doing. Like I didn't like doing accounting. I'm pretty sure I like nearly failed accounting in college. Like it's just not good at. Like I don't want to be doing that. And so like they of course have like the resources to help us out with that. And then but that is not, I can mostly just focus on like the things I feel like we're better at, selling go-to-market engineering, building out a team specifically catered to this idea.
And how long are you sticking around for?
I mean, as long as I feel like I need to make this thing pop, but we still have a goal with the company. I still want to make this agency. I mean, I think our first initial goal when we started the agency is we wanted to feel like we were the best agency in the go-to-market engineering space. Like we wanted to be the number one Clay agency, and I like we felt that we had achieved that goal. And so then the next goal was like we want to validate go-to-market engineering for the whole world. Like we want this to be such a clear job title, and we want to be like known as the best for it. And I internally had this desire for us to be like a great incubator for good go-to-market engineers. Like I want in 10 years for all of our employees to be like head of go-to-market engineering at whatever, Google, right? Like they all just go off to be these incredible pioneers in the space. And so that we still, I think, have some work to do on. And so I want to keep building it. But
as you sat there in Clay's office and thought, we're the biggest Clay agency. We're the number one Clay agency, as you said, and looked at Varun 2 feet away.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean that's what we're telling Clay, of course. Send us all your best clients, Clay.
And I think that I saw you early on in the Clay University stuff and being a part of their content engine. You and some others, I know the Understory folks, Taylor Heron, Michelle from Cold IQ. There was a few of you guys, but you stayed so consistent with that, putting out great content. We've even done content partnerships with you. I mean, shoot, you're on the show. You've been on multiple times. So, yeah, man, you just continue to grind on the content side. And I think too, when people make content, there's this hesitation to not give away the secret sauce. I think you've been very secure in not giving away the secret sauce, but like the workflows behind everything, the tech, kind of how everything operates together, knowing that there's still going to be a giant subset of people who will not be able to implement it. I mean, the vast majority of the people who view your content, and that's just a great lead engine. So
the point there too, for anybody who is like starting or running an agency, I cite this conversation a lot, but one of my mentors early on in starting this agency was a guy named Eric Nowoslowski. I think a lot of people probably know who he is. He runs this awesome agency called Growth Engine X, with a very early Clay team member. And when I started the agency, I was so afraid to post anything we were doing on LinkedIn because I felt like I had this just like gold that I was holding on to. And I'm like, I don't want anybody else to know about it. And and like, that's like a very natural, I think, human instinct. And then I was talking to Eric about this instinct that I was having. And he was like, you need to completely flip it on its head. Like you need to literally post everything you're doing, like every workflow you're building, every secret you have, every tip you can think of. And he's like, and I was like, well, why would anybody hire us then? He's like, first of all, like most of these people are not going to act on what you're posting about. Like, even if it is like in your mind, just gold, like it's like absolute alpha. Most people are not going to act on it. Second, you're obviously disposed as a thought leader in the space after that. If the information you're really delivering is that good, everyone's going to look to you as like somebody who's a leader in the space, and you're going to just kind of essentially attract more opportunities that way. And I took him up on it, and that was like some of the best advice I'd gotten in the early days. Just like post literally everything you do, and don't be afraid of people stealing your ideas. They probably have already stolen your ideas. Like you're probably not the first person to do this. Like, kind of put your ego to the side for a second and just be like, I'm going to put up everything, even if it's bad. Like sometimes it might not even be finished. I posted unfinished Clay table that have done really well on LinkedIn because I'm just like, I'm working on this. It's not there yet, but look what I might be able to do. It's still exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adam, you have a good quote you recite fairly often about people stealing your idea or being the fear of someone stealing your idea. You want me to rip it or do
Yeah. Well, if I'm, let me know if I'm quoting myself correctly. So there's two issues there, right? Like, the first issue is like, it's the age-old build in public debate. Like, are you creating more competition than the awareness that you are getting from sharing like deep sort of like technical knowledge that is even related to how you're running your business, right? And there have been many before me, but like, kind of like Jason Fried, the 37 Signals base camp guy was the one for me. Like, he doesn't do it kind of like I do. He's not like talking about campaigns he's running and stuff, but like that guy for 20 years has been building a business and then sharing his philosophy and tactics about why his business is so good. No one, and he just doesn't even worry about competition. So like my view is that if you find your voice, then that message gets amplified far farther than, and far more powerfully than like anyone who's going to like be like, oh, that guy's crushing it, I'm going to just like build exactly what he's building, which by the way, doesn't really work. There's something magic about, what you're doing. Copycats don't really work. The second take is like, building like this stealth mode thing. I think there's probably some things that you would like need to be stealth mode about. Like, like I can see why SpaceX would like need to keep things secret, like, maybe, but like, generally speaking, I believe that it helps to share your ideas with people who are specifically people who are ahead of you rather than making them sign an NDA or whatever, because sometimes they can share insights that will be helpful to you. Anyone who could successfully execute your idea is already busy working on something they think is more valuable than your idea. That's really the summary of it all. That's what I believe.
That's the quote I was looking for. Yeah, that's exactly right.
If someone's going to take your idea, they probably can't execute it anyway. If they're not already working on something, they probably can't.
It's like if you think the moat is the idea,
yeah,
it's not
you're not far enough along in your career yet.
Like I just can't imagine like the Uber founders were the first people to think like, what if I got a taxi for my phone? I just can't imagine they're the first ones to think of that.
Yeah. And by the way, this is a Jason Fried idea. I just want to share it because we're on topic. Like, so he says ideas are a multiplier of execution. So like, if you think about it on scales of 10, right? If you have a level 10 idea, but your execution is like a 2, the sum of that's a 20. If you have an idea that's half as good, but you're a 5, but your execution is a 5, that's actually a better business. It's 25. If you have a level 10 idea and an execution that's 10, it's like 100. Then like, it's magic. But like, if you have 0 execution and a 10 idea, that's a 0 business. You know what I mean? Like in the summary, that's kind of a lot of numbers without any visual representation. But the idea is like execution is the driver and idea is just like a multiplier.
Yeah. I also want to throw out this idea that like when you're this early on, and I know a lot of the people in the audience are working on startups, including everyone on the panel hosting and guest today. We're all startup people, right? And the thing that is more likely to kill your startup than competition is you being unfocused or not properly prioritizing exactly what you're building. Basically, back to execution. So keep that in mind. Also, I think it was Alina from Chili Piper was like, actually, competition was the best thing that happened to us because like now we could have other people learning things out there, besides us, and then we can learn from them based on kind of how they're positioning. So I thought that was very interesting too, just like these different takes on competition, because I think these days we're less scared of it than we used to be. I know for a fact Patrick is friends with some people who run also really great agencies in Clay, And yes, there's competition. I'm sure you guys could have each other's users or whatever, but like I think collaboration beats the risks of competition in that case. So
yeah, especially in a growing space, I just don't think it's like that big of a concern. Like GTM engineering, when we started the agency and had maybe 4 or 5 other agencies, we were like, we're covering not like 0.01% of the total market for this. So like we should all just figure out how to scale as quickly as possible, and none of us are really going to have any problems, with like with revenue or client need. And that's still been the case. Like I'd say I'm close friends with pretty much all the big Clay agency owners still, and we share secrets all the time. Not a big deal.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into the next section, which is really just like what is new in go to market. So you were on the show in December last, showing us great stuff about enriching, prioritization, all of that. Is there anything that has popped up in the world of Clay recently that you are very excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the most prevalent thing our team is thinking about is like the types of functions we were building for clients that Claude Code can now replace. That's pretty much the big one. So like, I mean, this kind of leads to a broader discussion, but we've just found that Claude Code can do a lot, and it can make our internal operations a lot easier, and then also make the output for our client much better. So while we're still massive proponents of Clay and we're still using it quite a bit, there's also some cases, and I saw a post from Taylor Hearn about this today, where you can plug a few data provider APIs and your OpenAI API key into a system, and like essentially build what you would have built in a table for like pennies on the dollar. Like it's pretty absurd. And then also you can now start I forget who, somebody on our team did this, but then somebody else kind of launched it publicly. Somebody reverse engineered the Clay API and then build an MCP on the Clay API. So like you can now prompt Claude Code to build Clay tables for you. So like the speed to execution in go-to-market engineering is accelerating a lot, and we're trying to find ways actively to incorporate that into our business, at least in ways that make sense, because it's not all there yet, and we're building stuff for enterprise companies, and so we're not really willing to roll anything out until it's actually production ready. That's actually a nice thing, as an aside, about running an agency, is like you see all this hype on LinkedIn about different tools and different process and different like as an agency, you literally have to figure out whether it adds value or not. And if it doesn't, you need to get rid of it. And that's like a really fun thing to do, like actually knowing what works and what doesn't, and being able to like discern between different tools and then recommend to a client, like you should use this versus not, like not this. That's really helpful. But all that to say, yeah, we're really pumped about Claude Code. It is really that good. And
Wow.
we think it's going to fundamentally change how go-to-market engineering is done. Because beforehand, you had to know all these tools. Eventually, all of these tools are going to be MCPs that you can prompt from a terminal and execute on immediately. It's not going to, there's not a lot of moat left, at least in go-to-market tech. And data is really the only moat, I think, that's left. And
Well,
we were having a discussion about this before this started, but data is really one of the only moats left. So like, whoever ends up building, the best consolidated data API for Claude Code for the cheapest is going to be probably the one that wins. And then there's kind of like a couple engineering problems that the newer models will probably solve, but that'll be pretty much it.
I think this is the perfect time to jump into the vibe coding, Claude Code section of the conversation. So Clay, in my opinion, really like created this this entire world of go-to-market engineering over the past, say, 10, 15 years. What you need to do to run a successful motion, the amount of testing you need to do, the amount of noise you're up against, and I'm not saying from competitors, just like other stimuli as you're scrolling around on the internet. Like it's like, all right, here's, an ad for retention.com. And then here's, an ad for some shorts that you were going to buy that you left in your cart. And that, like, it's just like, we're just crushed with information. So getting attention is harder. Still incredibly doable, as we all know. So I feel Claude Code and specifically this like new 4.5 Sonnet, like, really like update that they made recently, has put Claude into probably the most talked about AI tool out there, since ChatGPT a few years ago. So I started using it a couple weeks ago. I've been blown away. Everyone on this chat, or if you've been to the show before, knows that I'm a huge V0 guy, the Versal app. I hit a ceiling with that, depending on what I'm building. It's still great for certain things, landing pages, lead magnets, ad generation, stuff like that. But for these more robust tasks like Patrick is talking about, Claude allows you to build these agents that are really just like working for you. You can essentially like build an AI employee kind of that does all sorts of different tasks. One last note before I ask how you're using it. This has my YouTube feed has gotten incredibly flooded with Claude Code. All my favorite like business go-to-market, influencer YouTubers that I follow. Pretty much half of their videos now are Claude Code. And my wife works at a large, I'll just say publicly traded tech company. And I overheard her while she was making breakfast this morning on a meeting, like a company-wide meeting about Claude specifically, and the concerns that could someone just vibe code our entire app, whatever. And we're talking about like a publicly traded app, right? And then versus Patrick or I like vibe coding it, in the afternoon. So probably not likely to happen for them. But my point is like everybody is talking about this. So to start, Patrick, how are you? Oh, well, actually, let me just like lay out what Claude Code is. Claude, run by Anthropic. So if you hear anything about Anthropic getting funding, anything like that, that is Claude. That is the sort of agent or model rather, that they're building and working on. Recently, it's gotten amazing at code. It's gotten amazing at building agents. They have this co-work feature. So it's really blown the doors off of this whole vibe coding thing and lowered the barrier. It's lowered the barrier to entry and massively raised the quality of the output, which is an insane combo, especially to the degree to which it's done it. So, Patrick, I'm curious, I guess to start, how are you and the other folks at the Kiln using Claude? What tasks do you have it doing, and how has it sort of changed the way you guys work?
Yeah. So I think you can kind of separate the way we're using Claude Code into two different buckets. The first is internally, like how are we just using it to make the work we do better? And then second is externally, like how are we building things for clients using Claude Code? So internally, we're mostly using it as a way to structure and act upon internal data. So like, as you can imagine, you have a bunch of, disparate pieces of tech within a business, Slack, whatever, Google Drive, Notion, maybe Monday.com, whatever you're using to house internal data, maybe your Gmail, your HubSpot. And so and there's a lot of great information. Oh, another great one is call recorders. So like there's a lot of great information coming from all these different places. And of course, if you can build kind of this consolidated research bot to be able to extract information for you really quickly, you can a lot quicker than before get data about the business and you put it to use. So like a great example of this is if maybe we were working with a client and they're looking to renew a contract with us. So we have all of this context because we've been working with them in Slack for the past like 3 months. And we have several calls with them, with these different recording transcripts. There's a lot of context that you need in order to like renew a contract based on the previous work that we've done and where we're standing on all of our projects and even our internal channels. Like I think it's a lot easier now with Claude Code to be able to create these assets if you're able to create like a consolidated database and to call upon those things. And so we use it for that, and then we use it to build internal systems for the business. So like, let's say we build a Clay table and it runs an enrichment of everybody who books a call with us. That's pretty straightforward. But maybe we don't want somebody to go in Clay to do that. We can build a front end using Claude Code or like a website using Claude Code and then roll it out a lot easier. And then we're also just using it for like all of our team's side projects. Like I've always been a huge proponent of, work on your own stuff separately. I've always liked Google's kind of policy on that. Like all of the team members should just always be working on their own stuff because you can usually bring some of those insights internally. And so we have a Friday call for an hour at the end of every week where we just show off the stuff we've been building separately. And a lot of that stuff ends up translating to something we're doing in the business. And then the second bucket, which is externally, how we're using it for clients, two core ways. The first is, you can replace some of the functions of what Clay does for a lot less expensive in Claude Code without having to spend a ridiculous amount of credits. And so, great example of this is if you're running like a basic email enrichment and you have a couple providers that you've vetted for an enterprise company and approved. Sometimes you can't use all of them. You can just get APIs for those providers, put a CSV into Claude Code, run it. It'll find the emails using the API significantly easier. Second is using front ends for workflows we built. So I kind of just talked about this before, but sometimes we'll build a workflow that we don't want clients to actually be in Clay using or N8N using. So we can build just a really quick front end for sales team members to interface with when we're building a workflow. And again, this is like mostly just go-to-market engineering use cases. I know you can do a lot more with it. Like one of my team members on a call like 2 weeks ago just prompted it to like, he gave it Typeform's website. I'm sure everybody's used Typeform. He just gave it Typeform's website and he was like, rebuild this entire software. And it just did it like perfectly within like 4 hours. Like he sent it to us afterwards and it was literally the whole function of Typeform just completely recreated. And I was like,
I mean, that is terrifying.
The whole thing, like I'm telling you,
who else is scared by that statement? Can we get a "I'm scared" in the chat, or are you excited?
It was literally like you could create your own forms, you could copy the links to them, people could access like, and every form creation function in Typeform was done. It was insane, and so like I know it can do a lot more than what we're talking about, but again, we only really use it when it's like production ready for clients, and obviously we're working with enterprise businesses where there are a lot of security and compliance risks. So like, we use it internally when we can, but it's actually a lot more fun to just play around with externally and build stuff for. I've been working on this. No one take this idea. I've been working on this bot that gets eBay listings and then compares them to historical sold prices and then builds like, and this is specifically for my own. I love vintage clothing and I want to buy more vintage clothing, but I can never find deals on eBay. So I found this like arbitrage bot that's going to like find me really niche deals on eBay using Claude Code. And it's like, that's like a lot more fun to me. But it is kind of nuts what it can build.
Can we talk a little bit about this moat? So like this moat situation. So the chat just filled up with like SaaS apocalypse. I'm scared. This is insane. Scare-sighted, someone said. I like that word. So at the end of the day, like people, let me figure out how to phrase this. So like, Patrick, if you and I put our heads together this afternoon and build Uber, right? Like we built the app of Uber. Well, we wouldn't be able to like just take over Uber, right? Because Uber is a tool or like a platform that basically just connects riders to drivers. And it's like, it's the people using the platform that are actually, that's where the equity is. It's really in the distribution of that. Yes, it's in code. But so I'm curious about like, you know, if tech stops being the moat, we know ideas aren't a moat. Brian just in the chat just nailed my comment. What is the moat now? Is it creative strategy? I mean, distribution's got to be one, right? Like sort of awareness, so like let's think 3 years into the future, right? Or 4, let's just pick an even number. It's 2030, right? Claude Code's gotten even better. It's Sonnet 10 now. So like, what exists now for people who want to start software companies or even, yeah, I mean, just companies in general, right? I guess a company made out of bits, not atoms.
Yeah. So I have like, I don't know. I'm just a guy who runs a Clay agency, so I don't know anything. But like when I think about this, I actually am pretty concerned for software companies. Like, and here's why. Of course, companies who are paying like $15 a month for Typeform aren't just going to like go recreate Typeform. It's probably just worth keeping Typeform. But like, you know, any enterprise level software should be pretty concerned, I think, because if you're paying like $400,000 a year for a piece of tech, which you'd be surprised a lot of enterprise companies are doing this, like it would literally be cheaper in many cases to just build that functionality internally. And then the only thing really stopping them is compliance in a lot of cases, like, you know, having to work like SOC 2 compliant tech. So, and that doesn't feel like a permanent barrier. And so I think it depends on the SaaS you're talking about, but I do think it is somewhat concerning, like at least for enterprise software companies, because there isn't at that point like much of a reason to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars when you can just hire somebody internally to like spin this up, you know. And again, there are compliance and infrastructure purposes. I'm not saying it's like easy and it's going to be done immediately, but you know,
eventually eventually when you can just tell it, give me Salesforce, and it gives you, it's like,
Yeah,
it
because
gives it to you
that just
perfectly.
happened with Typeform. Like Typeform isn't that simple. Like it's a simple, but like it's not like you should be able to build it in 3 hours. Simple,
right.
So it's like,
So
yeah,
it, to me, the first shoe that drops is like software companies that are buying expensive SaaS to run their business because they're already building software, you know?
yeah,
You know what I mean? Like it's kind of hard, like, the municipality of Aspen, are they really going to like replace software that they use by like Claude coding? Like I don't think so. Not for a while,
exactly.
right?
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
but like there are certainly businesses that will, you know, yeah.
yeah. It's not going to ruin
Th-
all. I'm not saying like I'm really not saying it's going to just like tank software as a whole. I just think there are some companies
right.
where they don't have much of a technical moat anymore, and they're selling these big enterprise contracts to stay afloat. That like it gets kind of concerning. But like again, no one's recreating Uber. Like Uber's fine. Like it's not
Right.
like people are going to be spinning up Uber in their house to you know. So there is moat in a lot of software, but then some
Yeah.
that is just technical and it's selling big
At the
enterprise.
very least, when you see something like that Typeform thing, you understand the recent reaction in the equity markets. Basically across the board, SaaS is down like 30% or something, right? Like, okay, like maybe they have some distribution edge or whatever, but like if Typeform can just be rebuilt in 3 hours, basically exactly how it is, they probably shouldn't trade at 20 times revenue or whatever, right? Like, at least there should be some yeah, this paradigm of like software being the highest value uh vertical in the market feels like that might correct, right? Like,
Yeah, I think it's like this the price of software will probably just price correct. Like that's my thought. Is like it's going to be pretty hard to justify these massive annual costs for something like Salesforce potentially down the line if like there's not much of a like companies will pay for the convenience of having it already done for them and like a support team, and not having somebody internally having to like rebuild functions in it, but it gets kind of concerning. But again, it also just creates a lot more opportunity as well. Like if these same companies spin up agents that do the same thing, like you know, it's still there's still opportunity there for sure.
Yeah, I'm interested in the few things. One is like so like the fact that now, well, let me take a step back. As a preface, I run or started rather consultancy slash agency. I'm very interested in how the ease of building tech now can supplement the services side of things, right? Like, can I give them a very custom stack or platform that levels up my agency or consultancy and basically just creates a moat more around the consultants or like the agency rather than like, oh, I'm going to sell this as a one-off product. Just knowing that like anyone can kind of build that thing and selling it as a standalone is like, I'm not being that clear here. So like you still need domain expertise, right? People hire service providers like you, Patrick, or even like me for that expertise, right? And to kind of execute on some of this. So you can still build software that helps you execute that or adds value to your service clients without it being kind of a straight tech play. That's what I'm really interested in. And it's less so because I'm scared of the full tech play, but more to, I don't know, just give these like more and more valuable offerings to people. So I'm pretty excited about that. Is there anything in the pipe kind of from a vibe coding perspective? Like, has it reshaped the way you think about the future of the kiln? And you can keep some secrets between you and JT in the chat here. But yeah.
No, I mean, it absolutely does. I mean, I think maybe some people saw the news that like I think it was YC just opened up their batches to agencies for the first time. Like it was almost always, they would never accept agencies before, and now they're potentially open to doing so. It was either them or A16Z. I'm forgetting who, but like, I think the reason they're doing that is because services are becoming much more tech enabled, and you're able to implement to a much wider view of companies a lot faster. But also, on the more pessimistic side, would beg the question, like, why do you need to hire the agency if it's easier to implement? But still is an element of domain expertise that I think most companies hire agencies for. Like most of them don't hire agencies for sole implementation purposes. I think they also do it for expertise and to make sure it's done right. Like a saying I told a lot of my team members internally when we started moving up market is like enterprise companies hire agencies because they want to be 100% sure it's going to work, not like 90% sure, because they're investing a ton of funds and they're rolling it out to a massive team. And so like that still I think will exist with agencies. And as I mentioned before, like, if you can plug Claude Code, if you can plug Clay into Claude Code and just spin up tables, like that just makes our whole team like 10 times more efficient. So it can get really exciting there.
Is that what you're doing? Do you have Clay running through Claude?
We don't think it's there yet. Like somebody's built an MCP for it, but I don't think it's there. I'm sure Clay's building their own MCP for this too. But like, we don't think it's 100% there yet, but it's getting there. And when it does, I think it'll change the way we do work, obviously, because we have to lean more towards our kind of strategic acumen to sell deals and focus less on like, here's how to set up conditional runs in Clay. Like the Claude Code will figure that out. Like you don't need to consult on that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting, man. I don't like to be, through this whole kind of AI wave, and just in general, I don't like to be the doomsday pessimist. Like I am very interested in just like historically how these things usually happen. Like, when the printing press came out, like everyone was like, oh, great. Like now, universities are going to be obsolete because now you can just go to a library or like, I mean, shoot, even go back further, like hundreds of years ago when people became more and more literate, like there was a big literacy kind of spike. And there was this big concern that like, okay, now people's memories are going to go to shit because now they can just write stuff down. Like everyone's literate. Like that's going to affect the human brain. So now I try to not say this time will be different because historically it isn't, but I think a lot of things will change. I'm very specifically interested in our space, like this SaaS world, how this changes. And I think it's going to be a slower evolution than we all expect. Like, I think a lot of us have these fears that like by the end of the year the projects that we're working on are going to be obsolete. I don't think that's the case. But I do think it's just going to dramatically change the expectations that people have of our products, of our services, and also give us the opportunity to provide way better products and services to people. So, it's like all tech that's ever come before us. It's an adoption kind of game here. So I'm very interested in that. Adam, there were some things about data. So we talked about data being a moat. There's a question about like what data specifically. So could you just give the audience a little thesis on why data is a good moat in this world of, being able to build Typeform in 4 hours?
Yeah. So I think, so you can't just like tell Claude Code to like write you a data company. Like even if you are a data company, is like you go out, source a bunch of data from somewhere, or you have your clients providing it, which would be the ideal scenario. And then you have to somehow uniquely position new combinations of data to a market segment that values that. So being a data solutions provider rather than like a user interface, which Claude can look at Typeform and build in 1 second, it's not like you can't get copied, but like Claude Code doesn't just like make that to where it can be, an exact identical copy can be created in 1 second. So, I think the data moat is like unaffected by AI. If anything, data is becoming more valuable because it's the input for, every type of personalization, every type of segmentation, whatever else. So data is a moat, network effect is a moat. If you truly have distribution that can't, be matched for some reason, that's a moat. But I don't know, man, as someone who has a SaaS business, I really don't like the fact that Claude Code can take typeform.com and remake it in 4 hours. Like if I were going into any business and the underlying dynamic was whatever you create that works, anyone in the world can create that in 4 hours, I wouldn't think that that was a favorable dynamic to the market. Sadly, I just think all of us building SaaS are going to have to think about SaaS in a different way if it can just get created in an instant, in literally one instant. I'm not sure what that way is quite yet, but I mean, I'm, I think I'm like a couple steps ahead in actually being a data company because like data powers our products, like our core products. And I'm just very interested in exploring that, right? Like, and there's a product market fit aspect there that I just don't know. But yeah.
Well, I would like to spend the last 10 minutes kind of talking about just Patrick, kind of what are, let's kind of dive back into just go-to-market motions. I know there's a lot of people in the audience who want to generate more pipeline, who want to have better, more curated lists. Being the chief Clay officer on the call, for lack of a lamer title. But what are there some certain workflows, or you could even give like bullets of things people should be doing with their go-to-market motion today, given the fact that we have things like Clay, we have things like Claude Code. What is a inexcusable thing to still be running, not enriching, not filtering, not scoring? What in that world is sort of inexcusable these days, given all the tools that we have?
Yeah, I would say, something our clients have been doing a lot more of is I think they all seem to recognize that messaging is getting a lot harder and harder to pass through the person scanning and like recognizing AI filter thing. Like because of AI enabling messaging at scale, personalized messaging at scale, it's a lot harder to actually get prospects to respond. And so the amount of effort it takes to automate this new messaging is significantly higher. And a lot of the time that automation goes into sales assets. So I once demoed a Clay table, and I can probably pull it up in a second, that was able to auto generate essentially like custom web apps for customers to send to their prospects. And we've seen a lot of our clients kind of go in that direction, like auto generating PowerPoints or auto generating images or like entire briefs on how this company could help their client. All of that to say, like conventional messaging, while still works very well, of course, like in certain cases, it doesn't resonate as much. And so I'll show you kind of like one example of what we do to prepare for sales with the Kiln. I'll share my screen real quick. This is like a table that I built recently where we auto-generated slide decks for all of our prospects. I've definitely demoed this at Clay's conference, so hopefully it's not repetitive for anybody watching this. But in short, like we started automating more than just the actual message being sent. We're starting to automate processes in sales that maybe aren't being seen immediately by the prospect, but still add value. And so in this case, we've imported a list of companies from our HubSpot, companies that we either work with or book calls with us or whatever. And the goal was we kind of do two main things during our sales process, just internally at the Kiln. The first is we build like a POC Clay table to show them what we could build for them in theory at a larger scale. And then we build them a slide deck or some sort of presentation to show them like on paper what we would do. And those two things took up a lot of time. They take up like, probably a few hours per client. And that was pretty annoying. And so we built this Clay table that imports these HubSpot leads and then does a bunch of deep research on them. So you can see we have like their industry and their employee count, their annual revenue and their funding and how many sales team members they have and information on their financials. And we even ICP scored them. And we just like prompted an agent based on things that we care about, the ICP score them. And then figured out what tech they use. We even had an agent go and figure out what like their sales team comprised of, like how it was structured and how much sales team members get paid and what the comp structure is like, and how they go about selling the product internally, and then like revenue model. And we use that to build out a few use cases that we could recommend to this potential client. So we gave them 17 use cases that our agency builds out. These like the 17 core projects we felt we worked on, and then fed all of this previous information into the table. And we were able to get a list of 3 use cases in pretty deep detail as to what we could build for them. And then we use that to build a spec that gets written to a Google Doc. And we actually use another agent to build part of the Clay table. And then, of course, we have this like spec doc. So somebody on our team can just go build this out without having to think very much. And then we also created a slide deck copy. And so we use all this previous information to write a 10 slide deck copy. And you can see it gets output right here. And then we wrote that to a tool called Gamma, which was able to, hopefully you can still see my screen, create these slide decks automatically using all the information that I fed into the project before. So you can see like we have background on the kiln, we have a high level on Brex and their sales team, and then 3 use cases off the bat. So like somebody books a call with us and now these 3 use cases are auto-generated and the slide deck's completely built. I would say it's not 100% there. Like I would edit it a little bit. It's not like a perfect deck, but like it's much better than starting from scratch. And the idea here is like, we actually think because of the automation of outbound at scale, it will actually require more human in the loop selling than it did before. Like people were so scared of like the SDR and the AE job being dead. Like I really do not believe that. I actually think humans need to be more involved in the sales process now because of how much fluff there is out there. And so we thought, okay, like what other things are SDRs and AEs doing that they don't want to do and that we can save time on so they can just get back to selling and writing creative messaging and, you know, cold calling and doing all the stuff that AI can't do currently. And this is one of those things. So we were able to create, you know, slide decks. You can do the same thing with web pages. You can do the same thing with like PDF docs, with ads. And so this is something I would definitely recommend looking into is just like thinking of what other aspects of your business can be automated besides just messaging. Because as you can imagine, like I'm sure everybody here has gotten a message, like an AI message. It's just been like, this is trash. Like I know this isn't like a person writing this and I'm just going to ignore it. And so I'd actually focus a lot more on creating great messaging, even if it involves, you know, at least some humans in the loop and then automating other parts of the outreach process.
I love that because I think this whole like AI go to market, even pre AI, it was like go to market automation, right? Before we had GPT and all this, you know, these models that actually thought on their own. Everything was just really, and still is really concentrated around the awareness level. Like, how do I get more ads out? How do I get more ad variants out? How do I get more content out on, you know, on blogs so that like it can get ranked? How do I get more emails out, more customized emails? But I don't hear a lot of people talking about like that next level. Like, you know, we have our sales funnel here, right? Like all of those activities I just listed are at the top. They're at that awareness level. They're very top of funnel. And at the end of the day, to your point, Patrick, like when people do finally talk to a human, they want like the real human experience. They want people to put the attention and the time into their specific use case. And I think you're one of like, there's one client that I do work with that does this, but virtually everybody else is still selling like pretty stock offerings, which is also like a pretty stark contrast. If you really nail the AI personalization thing, and then you have this like very generic like sales process, it's just like a little bit lopsided. But at the end of the day, if you're going to generate all this pipeline, like you gotta close it. Like that's literally one part of the equation, and is only the beginning. So I'm really happy that you shared that and sort of brought in that sort of more bottom of the funnel use cases for go to market.
Yeah, I think there's just a layer of nuance to most sales processes where you can't like fully automate it, you know, and this is why we've set up a lot of systems for enterprise businesses where like we'll write, you know, we'll generate part of the message, but then we always tell sales team members like, please review this and change it to make it sound like real. And like that's maybe a less important one. But then even like again, when like generating something like a slide deck or like getting on a call and demonstrating like a PDF that you built out, like a lot of these things, if they're fully AI generated, it's just like very clear and it's kind of slop. And so our whole thing is just if we can even automate like 80 to 90% of that and then have people on the team complete the rest, it's still a massive efficiency gain without quality loss. And so that's kind of what we aim for is like this kind of weird like hybrid setup where, you know, we're obviously gaining a lot of efficiency, but we're not just shipping like the first thing that Gamma generates me from a slide deck standpoint.
Yeah. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on again. You're always a killer guest. We appreciate you endlessly. Let's see where this was. Let's see what we all build with Claude Code over the next 6 months, and then we'll have you back in the summer. That would be a fun little activity.
You know what I think is interesting? We're not talking about Chat GPT. It's like
No.
The only word anyone is saying anymore is Claude and Claude Code. You know?
Yeah, I mean, like, there's like the codexes of the world, but I'm just a big Anthropic fan. So
Yeah. It is a really interesting dynamic.
but yeah, if anyone's building a data company, hit me up. Because I really do think it's a new moat. And
yeah, well,
if
I
it's
actually
good, I'll help
emailed you, but
anyway.
Patrick, I emailed you during the show about something you said, but I would also love to talk offline about what your vision for this Claude Code set of APIs actually is.
Amazing. Well, sounds good.
Yeah.
Really appreciate everybody.
I'll send you my calendar.
Awesome.
Thanks to everybody for coming. Next week we got, I'm gonna botch his name, Gitano. What's his last name?
Gitano Denardi.
Denardi.
Yep.
And traffic has declined by 40% in the last year. Here's how to boost your own traffic in the world of ASEO. AEO, what's it called?
I've heard GEO, basically AI SEO, getting recommended in the AI overviews that either Gemini gives you or GPT. Yeah, so it AEO and GEO. That's right. We'll land on an acronym. So vibe coding found its nomenclature quickly. I think this will too, but we're excited to dive into that. That's a topic I think everyone's curious on, and I am as well. So that'll be a great show.
Too. I need to learn about it too. All right. Take care, everybody. Thanks for coming. It was a great show again, and we'll see y'all next week.
See you next week. Bye, everybody.